What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
Despite the once high popularity of the Chevrolet brand in Russia, the life of the Orlando in our market was not long. Sales began in late 2011, and the car was even localized. However, not at the GM plant in Shushary near St. Petersburg, but out of Toda. However, the prices were quite attractive. The basic car could be bought for $700,000, and even the top configuration was cheaper than $950,000. Of course, Orlando, and looked more simple against the background of Opel Zafira and Ford S-Max, but not so much so that the benefits don't justify the purchase. Moreover, Orlando even held leading positions in sales in the segment of compact minivans, and in 2013 received a 2-liter diesel engine to pair with the 1.8-liter gasoline engine. But the Russian buyer had to reason about the profitability of buying Chevrolet not long. In early 2015, GM's departure from Russia ended the history of the model, and in Europe the car lasted a little longer. But now everyone has enough time to decide whether to buy Orlando. Let's just find out what we will have to face when choosing. Local assembly, contrary to stereotypes, did not affect the quality of body paint, and the vast majority of cars look very good even, despite the age of 5 to 8 years. Of course, the paintwork is rather thin, but not too fragile, and the chips do not rust for a long time, allowing them to be painted in time. Besides, one of the secrets of popularity of Orlando in Russia is a trim of unpainted plastic around the perimeter. Such crossover notes turned out to be not only an example of successful flirting with buyers, but also quite useful functional element. Certainly, now it is better to examine metal under them more closely. Moisture is kept under overlays, and rust can appear from holes of fastening of clips. And there are enough covers here. They are on wheel arches, on the bottoms of doors and on sills. Typical problems, of course, have not bypassed the minivan. The front part here is voluminous, and although its most part is occupied by a plastic bumper, the edge of the hood is still in the zone of pebbles from the road. Therefore, the hood and perimeter of the windshield should be inspected for chips and pitting corrosion. Thin strips of chrome on the false radiator grille become cloudy, and large headlights are rubbed. Besides, in front it is worth to check strength of fastening of rear-view mirrors. Because of small backlashes they can white paint at the point of contact with doors. At the back, the trunk door is traditionally in the risk zone. Here rust appears not only on the lower edge, but also from under the lantern. And under that part of the optics, which is located on the rear fenders, sometimes there are hidden red spots due to paint rubbing. The inspection points underneath are absolutely typical. The wheel arch cavities should be examined closely. Time and pile under fenders do not promise anything good after 8 years of operation, without anti-corrosion protection. Thresholds under overlays also slowly but surely age, although there should not be serious problems here, provided that the car has not been in an accident. On a bottom, the problem points are fastenings of a subframe and suspension elements, and also places of touching the ground at rash maneuvers. Plastic dodger and clearance in 165mm sometimes provoked owners on feats. The bottom, by the way, it is necessary to check not only from outside, but also from inside. A hatch on these cars is rare in our country, but nobody cancelled where of door seals and problems with drainage of climatic system. And moisture in the trunk is quite probable, despite the almost vertical aperture of a simple shape. The Orlando shared the Delta II platform with the Cruze and Opel Astra, although Chevrolet did not get the Watt mechanism in the rear suspension. However, suspension schemes are common and simple. McPherson in front and torsion beam in the rear. However, the commonality of schemes does not imply unification, so the content of Orlando will not be as cheap as Cruze. For example, the front L-shaped lever from Cruze with all external and constructive identity does not coincide on geometry, wider track, and to buy it non-original in an assembly for $3,000 to $5,000 will not work. The price of a part for Orlando is $15,000 to $25,000, or even higher. It is especially offensive against the background of the fact that the ball bearing is changed together with the lever, and not every service will undertake to press it into the aluminum lever. But shock absorbers, formerly not unified with Cruze, are quite suitable both from it and from Astra, so the choice of non-original is wide, and for 4 to 5,000 it is possible to buy a qualitative detail. Behind everything is simpler. Even the original shock absorber costs less than 5,000, and analogues, from 1.5. Silent block of a rear beam is also cheap. 2,000 for an original detail and twice less for a substitute. Stupor bearings though are changed in assembly with hubs, but cost inexpensively, for to 8,000 for a firm detail and from 1.5 for a non-original. Well and trifles like stabilizer bars, fortunately, are completely unified with other models, so that the original rack costs 1,000. The same detail with opal marking, 2,500, and analogues, from 250 rubles. The family car did not save much on brakes, so the mechanisms here are always disc brakes on both axles. Besides, unlike the suspension, there is no uniqueness here, and the choice of non-original spare parts is wide. Discs, both front and rear, cost from 5 to 7,000 for the original and from 1,500 for substitutes. A set of pads can be bought for 1,000. In general, nothing outstanding. The main thing that the brakes on the inspected car were serviceable, including the handbrake, and the condition of brake fluid, lines, and hoses did not hint at the stinginess of the owner. But everyone can save money on power steering maintenance. The power steering here is not hydraulic, but electric, and oil in the system does not need to be changed. Complaints on EPS are not frequent, so it is worth to make sure that there are no knocks and the electric motor is in good working order. After all, in case of breakage, a restored rack can be bought for 30 to 40,000, but a new motor of the amplifier is twice as expensive. 2 transmission options were offered for the Orlando. Base cars were equipped with a manual transmission, and you could buy a car with a classic automatic transmission for a surcharge. Mechanics of the car from GM, of course, is common with Opel and other models. It is a 6-speed gearbox M32, or rather, its Korean version MZ0. It is stronger than its 5-speed relatives, but still it is not ideal. When inspecting it, it is necessary to listen to it on a hoist for hum and vibrations, as well as to check the work of synchronizers and clarity of gear engagement. Noise will indicate problems with the bearings, usually the secondary shaft, and worn synchronizers will still force to open the box for repair. Often instead of it, owners prefer to simply buy a node from the dismantling, especially given the possibility of installing a variant from Opel. From the point of view of service, it is worth remembering not only about replacement of the clutch, which can be bought for 10,000, without taking into account the mechanism of hydraulic release, but also about the dual-mass flywheel. It can nullify attempts to save money. The original costs 65 to 70,000, and the variant from Sachs, about 30. The automatic transmission is a 6-speed 6T40 of GM's own design. And unfortunately, it is not exemplarily reliable either. Partly because this box lacks standard cooling and oil filter, additional external radiator and filter together with oil change every 50,000 kilometers can prolong its life. However, they can be found not on every car, and oil in the box is usually changed according to the regulations, which finally spoils the situation. In addition to the standard wear of the torque converter locking linings, the box can throw up problems with the oil pump, planetary gears, solenoids, and so on. We wrote in detail about all possible troubles in the technical material about Orlando if cars with manual transmission on. The secondary market are few, but enough, about 25%. The Orlando actually has only one engine. The 2-liter diesel engine, which appeared in 2013, has not gained popularity. At the time of writing, there were only 12 diesel cars for sale on Avito, which is less than 5% of the total number of offers. So, the 1.8-liter gasoline motor of Ecotec family with marking 2H0, a relative of F18DA, A18XER, and Z18XER, becomes almost alternative choice. The unit is structurally quite old and, therefore, simple and reliable. The usual distributed injection, reliable and inexpensive belt timing promises a minimum of difficulties in maintenance. There are not even hydrocompensators, which at the same time hints at the necessity to listen to the engine on cold. From complications here except for phase regulators on inlet and outlet, but they can be bought relatively inexpensively. From chronic diseases, this motor has got a water oil heat exchanger, which without timely replacement either starts oil in antifreeze, or vice versa. And in general, leaks are peculiar to the engine. It is worth examining it carefully to assess the degree of its neglect. However, with good maintenance, it is capable of passing more than 300,000 before overhaul. The diesel, however, cannot be written off. This 2-liter motor with marketing designation VCDI is rare, but reliable enough, and besides, it is not too old. However, it is not necessary to look only on a cast iron block and chain drive of timing. Here there is also a turbine with variable geometry and expensive fuel equipment. So if you really want a diesel, you will have to look for a really live copy. Well, those who are satisfied with a gasoline engine will have an easier time. Taking into account all that we mentioned above, the logical choice will be Orlando in a good configuration with an automatic. Well, taking into account the budget of $750,000 to $800,000, you can look for a car with a small mileage of about 100,000 kilometers. Sometimes there are even on sale like this amazing copies, with a mileage of about 50,000 and with one owner on the points. Sounds, of course, improbable, but the opportunity to check the honesty of the seller is, it is Autoteca. Here you can verify not only the number of owners, but also find out the registered mileage history, the presence of accidents, as well as the presence of restrictions. Work in a cab and other dark spots in the life of the car. And if everything in the ad is confirmed, almost new Orlando has all chances for a long trouble-free operation. It is only necessary not to save on maintenance of automatic transmission and engine, and the rest is not so difficult. In conclusion, the Chevrolet Orlando offers a unique blend of spaciousness and versatility, making it an appealing option for families or those needing extra seating. Priced at 750,000 rubles, it presents a competitive choice in the 7-seat market. However, potential buyers should weigh its pros and cons, considering factors such as fuel efficiency, maintenance costs, and overall driving experience. Ultimately, if you prioritize space and practicality, the Orlando could be a worthwhile investment. But if performance and modern features are at the top of your list, it may be worth exploring other alternatives. Thank you for watching, and we hope this review helps you make an informed decision.